Hello everybody, Mr. Akins here, and welcome to What's on the Comic Rack. In this video I want to show you what I read last week. So what I read last week were these comics right here. I think this is a total of 9 comics. All these are post-crisis comics. There are comics in here that have some John Byrne art, but no John Byrne stories. This wasn't the only thing I read last week. For work I had to read this. Boring. Art was horrific. Horrific art in this one. Bad storytelling. But these comics were a mixture. Some of these I liked and some of them I didn't. So I'm going to talk about these once I show a close-up of these. So let's get to looking closer at these comics. So I read Legends. And we're going to start off with Legends #1 right here. Now Legends is a DC Universe crossover event. It's written by John Ostrander and lenwein, and it was illustrated by none other than John Byrne. The story deals with an attempt by Darkseid to discredit the heroes of Earth. Glorious Godfrey, posing as a TV psychologist, is sent by Darkseid to use his persuasive powers to accomplish this goal. Now, this book had a lot of themes in it, such as power, the media, the role of heroes in our society, and the concept of what a legend is. Things I know about this comic: first appearance of Amanda Waller, first appearance of Brimstone, first post-crisis appearance of Captain Marvel. Now, I did not realize when I first started picking these up that Captain Marvel was originally a Fawcett character. I thought he was always in the DC universe, so this was me thinking, oh, well, it's just Captain Marvel. I knew the character, but the fact that this was a first post-crisis appearance of Captain Marvel, I didn't really know that. Now, other things I didn't know about this comic: this series was DC Comics' debut of John Ostrander. Apparently, Ostrander worked at a company called First Comics before coming to DC. And this series also begins a long-running trend, for good or ill, of annual crossover events at DC. Now, the next major event after this was Millennium. And that, my friend, is a video for another time. And my friend Chris can't wait for that video. There were a lot of things I enjoyed about this series, others not so much. John Byrne's art, of course, was top-notch, but I may be a little biased. I love Byrne's rendition of Superman and Captain Marvel. In my opinion, only one person may do it better, Captain Marvel, and that person is Alex Ross. Now, I thought Ostrander did a very good job also of Darkseid's dialogue. Sometimes I don't feel people get their dialogue or get the characterization down for Darkseid. It can be a difficult character, but I felt like the dialogue that he wrote definitely fit the character. Now, the downside was that this was a crossover. The story had holes, and those holes were the other comics linked to these comics, and a lot of those I didn't have. I think one solution to that would have been to put the entire thing in one big, long, giant story instead of switching from Batman to the Justice League of America. Yes, that would have been a 24-part miniseries, but that would have been truly epic. This story also kind of deals with a Civil War type concept, that the government is trying to regulate superheroes, but this DC version was long before Marvel's Civil War. The other thing that stood out was Guygardner in this comic book. Ostrander did a great job of portraying him as the jerk he is. Every issue he had to tell you he was the one true Green Lantern. So annoying, but that was so Guygardner. So the next thing is, I'm wondering how many people caught this right here. For some reason, I have 2 issues of #2, but no issue of #3. That also kind of created a situation that made it odd reading this. I have absolutely no clue where #3 is. I know I have it, but when you've got a lot of comic books, it's kind of difficult sometimes to keep up with what you have and what you don't have. So the other 3 comics are kind of random comics that I've been reading.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
As a kid, I loved the $6 Million Man. And I had to get his first appearance in comic books. When I was a kid and you came home from school, there were 3 shows that would come on in the afternoon, and I always watched them. Doctor Who with Tom Baker, Star Trek, the original series, and the $6 Million Man. And I actually read this to see how this comic book was. It actually kind of surprised me as the relationship between Oscar Goldman and Steve Austin. Now in the show, they were fast friends, but in this one, they were more adversarial. It's more of a hostile relationship. So it was an interesting read. In addition, while I was reading those Legends comics, there were advertisements for other comics, and this was one of them. Now it's funny, this was an advertisement, and then the next weekend me and my wife go looking for comics at an antique place, and I happened to see this one. This is an awesome cover. This whole scene right here is actually an illusion, and during this scene Martian Manhunter references his grandmother, who tells ghost stories about the god of death, which is also the god of fire for Martians. So it was an interesting, weird read. I really enjoyed it. And the last thing I read recently was Insanity, Rise of the Occult by Swaggle. I saw how this was being advertised on Swaggle channel. I'm a big fan of Swaggle, and wanted to check it out. It was actually very well written. I know sometimes when you're creating the art and you're creating the word bubbles, sometimes it's difficult to place the word bubbles where it doesn't take away from the art, and then sometimes the word bubbles are placed in weird areas, and therefore it's kind of hard to follow the dialogue in those word bubbles. I know it's minor, but the word bubbles were very well placed in the comic book. It didn't take away from the art, and it was very easy to follow, and the dialogue was very good in this comic book. So I really enjoyed this comic book. I know the number 2 and number 3 are coming out in October, so I plan on getting those when they come out in October. So there you have it, the things I've been reading recently. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and until next time, we'll see you around the comic rack.